Amazing. Amazing. Amazing.
Excuse me.
Have a nice day.
Hi, I'm Will Greenlee with TC Palm.
Hi guys, it's Radio Free Elizabeth episode 73, and breaking news. I found out about a cool new band called Cosmic Church from Finland. They did an album last year that's called something in Finnish that I can't pronounce. Sorry, but it's very good. Cosmic Church. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go buy this album. Oh, what do you know? It's one of those weird things where you have to like send the distro an email to get a copy, and what do you know, part 2? These guys fucking broke up right after they put it out.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
So it's very sad, but yeah, they're good. I used them as part of the intro to this episode back in that cacophony of noises you were just assaulted by. But getting into the main topic of this week, last week I mentioned the band Sacramentum from Sweden, who were led by Anders Brolik and Niklas Terror Rudolfsson. So I figured, you know, we already did one end of the dissection melodic black metal spectrum last week with Dawn. Why don't we hit on the other side of it with Sacramentum? Now, one of the complaints often leveled at dissections music is that is it a bit too rock and pop influenced at some times, particularly on old songs like Where Dead Angels Lie, which I will admit is very good, but is also structured like an 80s heavy metal song rather than a black metal song. Dawn and Sacramentum were two bands that got around this. Dawn's thing was that they were very ambient black metal, almost Burzum kind of type shit with how they played their melodies. Sacramentum was like, oh, rock influenced, huh? Well, we're a little bit too for that, so we're going to go really crazy with our classical music introduced contrapuntal type shit. Lots of stuff hitting you all at once. Lots of melodies playing off of each other in unison or even like kind of fighting each other over the music. Very interesting stuff. I don't know off the top of my head if Sacramentum came out of any older death metal bands. This is from their first EP. It's from 1994, entitled Finis Malorum, and it is 100% pure black metal, so they might have just been black metal the whole time. So you can hear the layering is already going on, a lot of melodic stuff going on, a lot of melodies fighting against each other. Keep in mind that this came out the same year as like the first Enslaved album, Mayhem's De Mysteriis Dom Satanas, so these guys were leaders, not followers. You can hear a lot of different guitar techniques being used. And of course some very hateful vocals. And that kind of bouncier melody is a presage of things to come from this band. Because when they finally got around to putting out a full-length album 1 year later, unlike Dawn, who peaked with that third release that they did, I would say that the first full-length from Sacramentum is inarguably their best work, not to shit on anything else they've done. It's all been pretty good, apart from like one demo that came out in like 1993 that I haven't heard, and I don't think anybody else fucking has either. So what sets this album apart from every other black metal album, with maybe the inception of the second Obtained Enslavement album entitled Witchcraft, is the level of contrapuntal composition, the amount of counterpoint they have going on this album, which is entitled Far Away from the Sun. The dichotomy between Dawn and Sacramentum harkens back to something I discussed on a very early episode of the program, where there is a general dichotomy reproduced in most forms of artistic Western music and autistic Western music, wherein you have one fringe of the genre, no matter what it is, black metal or German electronic stuff from the 70s, anything like that, will be very focused on long-form melodies, heavy on layering, slow-moving composition with a lot of subtlety. And then the other lunatic fringe of that genre will be based around hitting you with a whole bunch of stuff at once and a really heavy level of counterpoint in the manner of Bach or something like that. What does that mean in a black metal context?
Let's find out.
So you have the one tremolo picked melody, the two different guitar harmonies, and a couple extra little clean guitar passages all being played at the same time. Very cool stuff. And the bass is even doing a little bit of counter melody. This album was recorded in Unisound Studios, and it's probably my favorite production out of that particular studio. But now we get into what this album is famous for, which is absolutely insanely complex guitar melodies stacked on top of each other in a very black metal way, especially in how they keep going back to that one root note. It almost reminds me a bit of some Burzman Darkthrone tracks, but done in a very unique manner. So while you might be able to argue for a Dissection possibly being a death metal band in black metal clothing, the same cannot be said true for Sacramentum, who are clearly obviously 100% true black metal. This part is almost like a more melodic take on something that Slayer would do, but then once we get out of it, we're going to get into some very doom metal inflected stuff. I don't know how good the production comes through with whatever abominable bit rate I'm going to have to crush this down to, but rest assured this album sounds amazing. And here you can see them doing a bit of ye olde black metal layering with the complex guitar parts, fading in new things to add to the fracas. I like that drum beat too. Not really something you could mosh to though. I mean, maybe. And here's where the counterpoint gets really nuts. It's like every stereo channel has at least two different guitar parts going on in it, and there's like another one being milked up the middle, so like 5-level counterpoint. With a very happy sounding riff for a song called Blood Must Be Shed, or was it Blood Shall Be Spilled? Something like that, I don't know. There's some good spooky tremolo riffs. So that album is amazing. It used to cost like upwards of $200 to get an original copy of that. Luckily, I think it was Century Media. Somebody fucking reissued it recently, so go out and get that shit, you dorks. On the second full-length album from them, The Coming of Chaos, I think they realized they had taken the whole melodic contrapuntal black metal thing as far as they could, or as far as anybody conceivably could. So they brought in a lot more thrash metal influence, but still keeping their signature darkly melodic style, which gives us something that sounds like this. So obvious thrash metal influences right out of the gate. But then there's more of those melodies I was talking about. They just reworked them in a very thrash metal influenced context. Some interesting guitar playing. There was more of those Slayer style riffs. And obvious thrash metal stuff. On this album you can hear Niklas Rudolfsson taking over more songwriting duties from Anders Brolik, who was the initial songwriter for Sacramentum on their more melodic stuff. But the layering and the counterpoint is still in full effect. Like I said, it's just done in a more percussive and angry fashion. Somebody must have pissed in these guys' Wheaties or something when they were recording this album. There's some very doomy stuff. And this newfound sense of anger carried over to their third album, Thy Black Destiny, which, if Far Away from the Sun is their black metal album, and Coming of Chaos is their thrash metal album, Thy Black Destiny is almost their death metal album. Uh-oh, a little fascist in the intro there, and in fact this album has a slightly overall fascist bent to it. even with how darkly mechanistic the percussion sounds. Interestingly, the death metal that they are purveying is not of the Swedish variety, rather it's very deicide influenced, American sounding, which means it's very aggressive and complex. But at the end of this musical phrase here, melody is still very much a part of their whole thing. So those 3 albums were great, and then they sort of have existed in limbo for years since then. But Niklas Rudolfsson, who was a major songwriter on the second and third Sacramentum albums, has had a plethora of other projects that he's been involved in, chief among them being Runemagick, who bring the black metal grandiosity of Sacramentum to the world of death/doom metal. This is the title track off of their second album there, rather his. It's basically his solo project with his GF, surprisingly enough. But it's his little project, and this album and this song are called Enter the Realm of Death. So you can see what I mean, where there's still a black metal atmosphere. They use lots of choirs and bells and spooky noises. Just an overall sense of darkness that's uncommon for death metal, particularly for this time period. And we're even going to get a bit of Sacramentum style melody coming up. After we get through some thrash riffs, of course. Yeah, boy. That's that good shit right there, my brother. So not as complex as Sacramentum, but still very much worth listening to. Their third album went even further into dark atmospheres. Very, very dark atmospheres. This one is the second track off of their third album, entitled Resurrection in Blood. So you can hear a black metal style of melody, particularly in how they are moving around inside chords and going back to the root note in the manner of a French black metal band like Mutilation or Peste Noire. And also there's that whole sound layering thing that's a bit more black metal oriented than death metal, but still very much death metal. Swedish style death metal riff where you make the down-tuned guitar sounds like it's burping, but with some crazy Sacramentum style melodic leads over it. Later on they got a lot more doom metal influence, but that was always part of their sound. So a quick word of warning to my mein Freunden out there. The second and third Sacramentum albums and the first 3 Runemagick albums were reissued by Century Media as multi-disc sets entitled Abyss of Time and Dark Dead Earth, respectively. Do not buy these. The remastering job on them was terrible. Try to track down the originals if at all possible, which they're not that expensive. It's like maybe $20 a disc for some very good material. So go out and get those. Hopefully Anders Brolik does some more black metal stuff at some point. Runemagick, of course, is great. It's just hard to do an overview for them because since, like I said, it's him and his girlfriend, you know, they live together. They, I think they're married, actually. They have like 30 albums because they can just like wake up and do one. So I'm not familiar with every Runemagick album. Sorry. I'll try to do better next time, folks, and I'll see you around.
Don't have too many more details, but stick with Will Greenlee and TC Palm today for more updates.
아!